here, and it's warm. It's very nice, but it's warm. So today I want to do a piece about an article that appeared in the UK Daily Mail, updated today, by Suzanne Glover. For those who don't know, the Daily Mail is a centrist, slightly left of centre UK publication. It has always had a good sense of news values. It has moved to the left over the last decade, but it remains a moderately reliable news source. Now, this article by Suzanne Glover discusses the experiences of her daughter Bella, who is 13. Right, she's 13, at an all-girls school somewhere in England. Now, Bella, 13, estimates that 1 in 8 of her year group at school have already come out as gay, bisexual or transgender. And she is concerned that she is regarded as boring and an unsuitable friend because she is neither transgender nor gay. And her mother, Suzanne, asks the perfectly valid question, which is that by trying to stop a small number of transgender pupils being bullied, are the rest of the class suffering? And the answer is probably yes. One example that she gives is the ongoing saga of Bella's friend Jessica, who came out last year after she started dating Alexandra in another Year 9 class. Only Alexandra has since decided she's now transgender and is living as a boy called Alex, who must only be referred to as he, despite being a pupil at an all-girls school. There were huge dramas when another classmate, Rebecca, confessed to Laura, who is in her math set, that she was sexually attracted to her. Laura, who used to present as a boy, angrily rejected her, saying that she had jumped to the wrong conclusions. However, Laura has now decided that she's gay after all, and the pair are now dating. Bella has been obliged to go to seminars on inclusivity, which were led by the most prominent and most influential gays and trans people in the school. This problem is not by any means restricted to single-sex schools. Several figures are quoted here. One school in Brighton was revealed to have 40 children who didn't identify with the sex they were at birth, with another 36 out of 1,600 children saying they were gender fluid. Let me make my own case clear. My position is that there are indeed a significant number of children who are genuinely trans. Now, when I say that, what I mean is prepubertal children up to about the age of 13 who are genuinely trans. That is, they have sexual inversion, they are forced to decide whether to be gay boys or girls if they start off as boys, and vice versa for girls. But these numbers are really very small, particularly for females. More figures are actually quoted in the piece, but the problem is that, we'll come to that, the figures are kind of unreliable in this area. But we can assume that it's a very small number of people. If you imagine that there is a set of people in the population who do have, a physical sexual inversion, then that's a finite pool. So the more of them that become trans, the less of them will be gay boys, if they're boys. Similarly, the more of them will become trans and the fewer will become lesbians if they're girls. Now this is, at the moment, especially on the lesbian side, is a tremendous battleground, because lesbians are basically fighting to get their girls back, because they don't want their girls to become trans. They want them to remain identifying as girls so that they can be part of the lesbian scene, which has in recent years become certainly as strident as the male version, the new gay man. I will immediately confess that I don't know anything like as much about the female version, but reading into it and reading what's happening, it has become extremely aggressive. So it's basically doing what the gay man was doing, the new gay man was doing, and continues to do, 15 to 20 years ago, when you had people like Jim Forat absolutely berating transsexuals for saying, that they were actually going to destroy the gay lifestyle. And why would that be their fault? You know, if they're naturally trans, why should they be gay? But you have to understand that in the Anglo-Saxon mindset, gay is good and trans is bad. I mean, that was what Zucker was all about. That's what, unfortunately, Mike Bailey has repeated. Gay is good, trans is bad. Now, there's no evidence for that. Now what you seem to be happening is that there's an absolute flip. It's on its head. And there are a number of reasons for that. Certainly in the UK, one of the reasons has been that there were big changes in British education occasioned by the election of the 1997 Labour government, so-called New Labour, under Tony Blair. And you find that the first generation of people who went through school under the new regime of Blairism are now themselves teachers, right? Young teachers. And so they're bringing a lot of very left-wing ideas, some of which are good, but not all of which are good, and they're trying to impose these on society. Understand that LGBT in the West, is the Anglo-Saxon West, is transgressive. It is an instrument of political change and social change. It is not politically neutral. So what you've got is people who are essentially very biased towards the left, using it to try to change society by changing other people's children. And that's wrong, to start with. Lest you doubt that the underlying nature of the modern teaching profession is extremist left-wing, may I just point out that their most favoured newspapers are the Guardian Observer and the Independent. I strongly advise you to get a hold of some of these things and read them and see just exactly how left-wing they are. The Observer Guardian, for example, is like a pusillanimous, extra soupy liberal, extra virtue signalling, everything nasty about the left that you can possibly imagine version of the New York Times. It's an appalling rag. And that is what today's teachers are reading. That's where they're getting their steer from. That's where they're getting their ideas from. This extremely left-wing view that gender is not a real thing. Even sex is not a real thing. You can just choose it. It's up to fashion, whatever you want to do. This is disastrous. Now, I currently live in a culture where there's a lot more obvious transgender expression, and actually a significant amount more, I would say, gay expression as well. And the whole thing is very much less transphobic than it would be the case in the Anglo-Saxon West. And let's just remember for a moment that transphobia is what caused the new gay man to exist. Transphobia is the phobia of men appearing to be women, right? It's not so much about men having relations with other men. I mean, men don't like to be put in a position where they think they might be being regarded as a sex object. But other than that, most men are fairly cool about gays. It's like, you know, they do their own thing. But the transphobia element is really harmful. That's where it's like, you must not appear to be feminine if you're starting off male, and to a lesser extent, you must not appear to be masculine if you're starting off female. And that's what caused the new gay man to actually come into being, because the idea of the new gay man was to make everybody look like men and then they would disappear. You know, there were to be no more flaming gays, there were to be no more flamboyant boys in pink dresses and tights and all that sort of thing. That was all going to be got rid of. And the fact is that the new gay man is one of the most transphobic identities in the Anglophone West at the moment. They continue to suppress and oppress HSTS trans women and HSTS trans men. And nobody ever challenges them because, hey, they're gay, so they're a protected class. But I'm not advocating for genuinely trans kids to be victimized. I'm totally the other way around. I want to protect trans kids. But the fact is that most of the transitions that you're seeing at the moment, particularly the female to masculine ones, they are not genuine. They're the result of teenage female neuroses, the same neuroses that give you self-harming, that give you early promiscuity, that give you teenage depression, anorexia, bulimia. It goes on a long way. It's not like teenage girls rarely have psychological difficulties. It's absolutely normal in this class of people, in this group. And to then coerce people who might be just confused about themselves into thinking that they're trans, and then suggesting that they have hormonal and surgical treatments that will actually ruin their lives, is completely immoral. It shouldn't happen. Remember that if you give a female child testosterone, you will make her change in ways that can never be reversed. But the problem is that the idea that transgender is the new holy grail, the idea that society can be changed in what these people think are positive manners, simply by making people change their sex or their gender, is utterly preposterous, but it's actually what's happening. I have a tremendous sympathy for Suzanne Glover, and a nicely written piece here in the Daily Mail, if I can get back to it. I've already done a piece showing the huge increase that we're having in referrals of, particularly of female to masculine transitioners. She mentions again that the Tavistock Centre in London show that more than 2,500 children were referred to them in 2017 to 18, 25% increase from previous year. Over 10 years, it's something like a 4,000% increase. But what is particularly disturbing about this is that of those 2,500, 1,800 were girls. Now, all of the previous studies, all of the previous research, everywhere, says that the majority of transitions are amongst males. Right? Now, we're leaving aside the specific cause of male transition here, whether it's HSDS or AGP. Most are males. When you get a situation where you're seeing 3 times as many females as males coming forward, then your alarm bells should be going off. There's something anomalous going on here. Either we were completely wrong in the past, which seems unlikely, or there's something dodgy going on right now. Now, like I say, I live in a culture where there's a lot more trans, but most of them are male to feminine. There's a significant number of lesbians and what they call trans men, short hair. Most of them don't take hormones, but they will dress as men and present as men, and they're generally speaking accepted as guys. It's fine, it's not a problem. But they're very small in number compared to the number of male to feminine. I mean, the ladyboys are everywhere here. There's loads of them. And trans men are somewhat remarkable because, oh, look, there's a trans man. So, and I'm talking here, by the way, about ladyboys that you can recognise, because a lot of them you'll just not know, So, I've asked various trans women here what they thought and others, what they thought the total numbers were in the population, of the male population of the Philippines. I think they tend to exaggerate a little bit. I've heard them say 20%. I doubt that very much, but I think it's way over the 1 to 2% that's normally quoted. I would be very surprised if it's not at least 5, possibly 10%. And it may well be that the West is moving towards that. The Anglo-Saxon West is. Remember, the Anglo-Saxon West, especially the US-ican West, is unbelievably harshly conformist. I mean, Americans are always going on about how they support individualism, but if you're an individual in the States, you will be pilloried. You're not allowed to be individual in the States. You have to be part of a group. That's why they invented identity politics, to give them all little groups to be in. I mean, you being an actual individual, no, that's not allowed. And do you understand the difference there? It's not the same when you've got, oh, yes, that's fine, that person's a particular, whatever the faddy thing is at the moment. Well, that's fine. You can label that person, you can put them in a box or her in a box, and have done with it. That's not individualism. That's absolutely not individualism. That's identity politics. That's making lots of different boxes to put people in. And once they're in there, they have to conform to the rules of that group. I've said before, Milo Yiannopoulos, who I thought was a lot of fun, cheeky, entertaining, frankly harmless, was absolutely pilloried and vilified by the left for the following reason. He claimed to be gay, and therefore fell into a particular identitarian box, but refused to adopt the politics and the political notions that are supposed to go with someone who fits in that box. So to come back to the schools situation, what you're seeing now is, particularly in the UK, is the cumulative effect of many, many decades of thinking that really has come from the United States. Sam Harris a few years ago said that Islam was the motherlode of bad ideas. Well, it's one of them. Actually, a much more serious motherlode of bad ideas in the contemporary world is the United States. And they export these ruthlessly through their domination of media and other means of transmitting these ideas that they have to the rest of the world. And the Anglophone world particularly has really been tremendously damaged by this. That's why places like the United Kingdom are so in such big trouble now. I mean, obviously there are other reasons that account for the fact that Sweden, for example, has basically collapsed as a state. It's a failed state now. Inside the Anglosphere, however, if you look at what's happened in Australia, look at what's happening in New Zealand, look at what's happening in the UK, you'll see that these American ideas, US-ican ideas, there's plenty of nice Americans, they just don't come from the US. These US-ican ideas have completely undermined these societies and have put them into a state of collapse. And if you're a parent today, I'm very lucky because my kids are all grown up, but a parent today, I would be extremely worried if I had children of the ages between 8 and 14, say, going through school right now and being told all this nonsense, then I would be deeply concerned. There is only one type of genuine transsexual. They are called homosexual transsexuals. They might be male, they might be female, right? They have inverted sexuality. You're talking about males who want to be penetrated, right? And females who would really like to penetrate if they could figure out a way of doing it. All of the other transitioners, the gender binaries, the 167 airhead genders, these are just fashion statements. They have no meaning whatsoever, and people should not be being indoctrinated to believe that these have value in either social or political terms, because they don't. The non-homosexual transitioners, that's the autogynephilic men and the so-called rapid onset gender dysphoria, ROGD, autoandrophilic females. Again, essentially these people are delusional. They're not really transsexual at all. If they were transsexual, they would start off homosexual. That's how it works, You're homosexual first, and that's part of your transsexualism. It's core, it's essential. If you're not attracted to the same sex, then how the hell can you be transsexual? You don't transcend any sexuality. Therefore, you're not transsexual. I want to see transsexual young people, young adults, and adult people strongly protected with as many opportunities and advantages as can be given to anyone else in society. I personally think that the current madhouse rush to these non-existent gender variations and variants is going to harm genuine transsexual people. And that's why we set up allaboutHSTS.com, which please go and read it. There's a lot of information on that. We want people to understand that being HSTS is special. You're not like these airhead genders. They're not transsexual at all. And the only people, in my view, who should be transitioning surgically, certainly, and the only people who should be considered for any kind of hormonal transition, even, under the age of, say, 16, are HSTS. I think that the trans cult, this fashion for trans, which is all it is going to damage genuine HSTS. And it's tragic. It's tragic. It makes me, tear up, because we fought, those of us who are writing about this and were interested in this, we argued for so long that genuine HSTS should be given the square shake. They shouldn't be made to think that they're just homosexual guys or lesbian women. They had a right to be what they genuinely were, or felt themselves to be. That if they felt themselves to be women, they were women. If they felt themselves to be men, yes, we accept you as men. We fought for a long time to try and make sure that that was accepted, that they weren't given massive doses of testosterone or whatever the fashionable drug of the moment was to try and man them up or whatever, you know. We wanted to stop that. We wanted to stop people like Zucker using advanced mind control techniques to try to basically use reparative therapy on people far too young to resist. We wanted to stop all that so that they would get a fair deal. And now what we're doing is we're seeing that the trans cult, which is actually motivated by people who aren't even transsexual, is going to create a huge social backlash which will impact on the very people that we wanted to protect. It's an absolute scandal what's going on just now. So I feel very sympathetic towards Suzanne Glover. And I have to say to her and to anyone else that at the limit, you may have to consider simply removing your child from school. We need to have some sort of intelligent discussion about what's appropriate for children and what is not. And that will have to start. It will have to start by recognising that homosexual transsexuals and other forms of transitioners are two completely different things. They have nothing in common. As long as we go on with all of this ridiculous, it's all trans together, and other nonsenses like that, politically correct nonsenses, the more people will be damaged. You have to understand that HSTS trans women are actually homosexual feminized males, right? And HSTS trans men are masculinized homosexual females. Right? And if you take out the homosexual element of this, the whole thing falls apart. Right? Because otherwise it's just this touchy-feely illusion of I feel like a woman. Well, how on earth would you know that? How on earth could you know that? And what we see is that what's happening is that identitarian politics is actually being used to persuade people that they're trans when if you're not homosexual, you're not transsexual. It's really the end of story. It goes no further, and it should stop there. So, to Suzanne Glover, you know, my great sympathies. You're not alone, and you will not be alone, and there's going to be an awful lot more suffering yet until the kind of people who are behind this, and like I say, these are the people who are reading the Observer, Guardian, they're reading the Independent doesn't have a paper copy anymore, it's circulation's too low. They're reading the Times Edge Up, all of these things, and they're getting their heads crammed full of absolute nonsense. You know, I mean, it's not that long since I was last in university doing an advanced degree, and I can tell you what it's like. These places are brainwash camps. They're terrible, they're awful, trying so hard to inculcate a particular way of seeing the world, which we really need to stop. We need to stop it. Men should be men and women should be women. That's it. And if you're transsexual, then if you're a transsexual male, then you're a boy who wants to be a woman, and the other way around, you're a girl who wants to be a man. And that's it. Two sexes, two genders, two sexualities. That's it. It's really, really simple. We don't need all of this nonsense. And the sooner it stops, the better.